Can anyone be a good manager? What traits do the best managers have in common? Founder of Want to Work There, Jill Felska, answers these questions and more.
Hey there, I'm Krista Vance, entrepreneur and operations leader.
And I'm Matt Vance, award-winning author and social innovation researcher. We're your hosts of the Culture Profit Podcast.
Your place for purposeful company culture strategy.
Learn from HR pros, executives, and thought leaders how to prioritize profits by prioritizing people.
This episode is sponsored by Mobrium, the best friend of forward-thinking HR leaders, helping you strengthen your employer reputation as a reflection of your real culture.
Learn more at mobrium.com. All right, welcome everyone. Today's episode is all about good management. We're going to explore what it takes to be an exceptional people leader with expert Jill Felska. So Jill, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. This is a delight.
It's a delight for us too. So Jill Felska is the founder of Want to Work There and the creator of training for the modern manager. She spent the last 15 years learning everything under the sun about building better workplace cultures and is on a never-ending mission to get practical, actionable tools into the hands of as many passionate culture creators as possible. I love that mission. That is so cool.
It's one that I just never failed me, so continues to live on.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what led you to get to this point.
Yeah, so I think all of us have, unfortunately, a horror story at some point in our career. Mine just happened to be right when I graduated college, and it was so impactful that it ended up changing the complete trajectory of my career. So I went from thinking I was going to be doing fashion PR to thinking that was just not for me anymore. And I knew that there was a deeper piece for me around like, how do we create better workplace environments? Because I was so shocked by what I experienced even in 2009. I just kept thinking, is this the 70s? Like how is this still happening? So that's what really led me to my career as is. And I've done a lot of different things over that time. I've been in-house as a head of people. I've been an entrepreneur and started a couple companies. But everything that I have done has really come back to this idea of how do we really create better workplaces? I think the biggest shift for me that I probably wouldn't have believed if you had told me 5 years ago, is that a big part of what I focus on now is people management. And I really had spent so many years focused on large organizational change and how do we change things from the top down. And I think there is so much that can be done and is impactful coming from that angle without question. But everything that I did kept bringing me down this path to people managers, because at the end of the day, there is no one that has a bigger impact on an employee's experience than their direct people manager.
So true.
Yeah, it's just the lever that I thought, okay, this is where I can create the biggest impact. So that's where I am now.
Yeah, and obviously you've been affected by that throughout your experiences, and that's why it probably what kept leading you back to it. And anyone that's ever worked, which I would say is most everybody, most adults, anybody that's worked in more of like a larger company organization, they've experienced this firsthand, whether it's been positive or negative, how impactful it is to them. And so I think that's such an amazing mission. And to all our listeners, Jill is coming through really clear. And if you're not on video, you'll have to check out. She has this incredible microphone in front of her and kind of a cool story about it, if you want to share that.
Totally. They were complimenting me on my microphone. And I said, the only reason I have this very cool microphone setup is because like 4 years ago, this podcaster by the name of Pat Flynn did a call for people who have been sitting on a podcast idea for a long time to start their podcast. And so I did and threw my name in the running thinking nothing of it. He was a really big deal. And I ended up winning to my complete surprise and delight. And so now I have this very fancy microphone set up, courtesy of Pat Flynn. So thank you, Pat.
I'm not surprised
Good
at
job,
all that
Pat.
you won though. Like you have this amazing personality and really your voice does come in so great. So anyways, I just thought that was kind of a fun little side story, but
Yeah, and what's the name of your podcast? Because people may want to go check it out.
yeah, we'll link to it for sure.
Yes, it has been on hiatus for a short while, but there's some wonderful episodes in there. It's called Want to Work There. So same as the company. And there's some gems. I've had some awesome people on there, but it's fun to be on this side of the
That's so
microphone
cool.
too.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, we're excited to get more into the conversation. And so I guess let's start out with what is the cost of poor people management to a business?
Yeah, I know everyone's heard the saying, like, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers, right? And I think that's kind of reflective of this, but from your perspective, like, what's the business case
Yeah.
for making sure we have good people leaders?
I love this question. And I love that this is the focus of your podcast because for so many years, I mean, I do the work I do because I believe it is the right thing. And I believe that creating better work environments we should do it because we should do it. And I learned really early on that real change always comes down to the bottom line, whether we like to admit it or not. And so being able to articulate how these things that to some people can feel more fluffy or, feel good, really do impact a business's bottom line. I think it's so impactful. So the two that I think are always the biggest focus areas, one, and you already spoke to it, is retention.
Mhm.
People do not quit jobs, they quit managers. There's always going to be variances to that. But like I said, a good manager can really shield and protect an employee from a pretty toxic culture. And the opposite can also be true. A bad manager can make a really positive work environment a place that someone doesn't want to be. So when you think about retention, the cost of hiring, the cost of recruiting, the cost of training, and all of those pieces, especially when it comes to your high performers and people that you are especially dedicated to keeping in your team, the cost is high. The cost is real, without question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing that I think about a lot, so McKinsey's been doing research for years on the importance of people managers and organizations. There's a lot out there about psychological safety. And when teams have psychological safety, which is usually driven by the people lead for that team, there is a ton more creativity. There is more safety in them taking risks. There's more innovation. But in 2023, and I'll send you the link, you guys can link to it. They actually came out with really strong qualitative and quantitative data around the fact that over a 5-year period, good management impacts the bottom line of a company's return. So I won't get into the nerdy math stuff, but it's cool to, I love when people tie things that are more high level to something that is really specific and tangible and that someone can take to their CEO or their leadership team and say, here, McKinsey said it.
It is true. Boom.
Yeah.
Not that they're the end all be all, but they have the money to do the research.
Yeah, they have some good info for sure.
And that is the point of this podcast, like the bottom line, and without the buy-in of the leaders and funding these things, you're not going to make much progress. And obviously every individual leader has their own, like they can choose to be influential and be a good person, but if they don't have that training, then they're ill-equipped to be the manager that they could be for sure. So
yeah. So Jill, there are so many different types of people out there, different managers with different personalities and leadership types. I don't think there's like one cookie cutter perfect manager. So like in your opinion, what characteristics do good managers have in common?
Yeah, no, there absolutely is not. And as you guys know, like different cultures and different types of companies call for different types of management styles. But there's a couple things I think that really go across all managers, and I think it's especially true now in sort of the modern work environment that we're in. But for me, first and foremost, emotional intelligence. So there is nothing more impactful than someone being in a management position that has high emotional intelligence. And one of the things that was, I think, most surprising to me when I was creating my management training curriculum was that it's actually something that is learnable and teachable. I think a lot of us tend to think someone either has it or they don't.
Right.
And yeah, there's so much you can do. And I'll just say, for people who like a definition, emotional intelligence is really the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions while also being aware of and then effectively responding to the emotions of others, so your team members. So when you think of it that way, it's like, oh yeah, I can learn and grow in that area. I can learn to better be aware of my emotions, to regulate my emotions, to tune into how my team is feeling, to pick up on those body signals and those cues. When that exists, big, strong endorsement because it makes a world of difference. I think the next thing for me is really, it all comes down to ego at the end of the day. I think really successful modern managers are not concerned with being the smartest person in the room. And we can talk a little bit about the shift that's happened in management from like the Industrial Revolution to the knowledge era and sort of how that's impacted management. But at the end of the day, with AI and all of the resources that we have available to us, a manager's job isn't to be a specialist in the same way that it used to be. A manager's job is to now coach and support the growth and the risk taking and the innovation of their team members. And so in order to do that, you have to be okay with other people having answers that you don't have. And it really comes down to the ego piece of, why do I feel like I need to be the smartest person in the room? That's not the important piece here. So yeah, and then the third for me is curiosity. If you are someone who is curious as a manager, it is going to serve you for the rest of your life, because you are going to listen more. You're going to ask questions. You are going to be open to changing your viewpoint on things. I think overall, like, it's just one of the best characteristics you can hire for in a manager, in all honesty. So yeah, those are some of the ones that I think kind of go across the board. It's not about introvert, extrovert, yada, yada, yada. Here are the kind of the personality traits and the behaviors that you can look for.
I like your perspective of curiosity. I think I would probably label it a growth mindset, somebody that's like ready to learn and grow. And that, to me, and someone like that can really learn anything. Emotional intelligence, they can change, they can become better. And I mean, I think that's such a good tool for hiring somebody. Just do they have that mindset that they have a lot to learn and gain, or are they like, I'm the best, and like, you've got nothing that you could do for me or whatever, right? So
yes, and it's such a simple behavioral interview question. Like, what's the last thing you've been curious about?
Yeah.
Someone who is a curious person is going to be like, let me tell you, this stamp collection from the 1980s. You're going to be like, I don't even think they had stamps back then. I don't know where that came from in my crazy brain, but that's apparently where I went.
Well, I went to black holes, curious about black holes. So I don't,
that's true. That's
everybody has something, right?
Everybody's got the Roman Empire.
Yeah. Love that.
So Matt mentioned a little bit about like how it doesn't, different personalities, you can still have good leaders and any kind of personalities, and also then industries. So what might look similar or different with a good leader in different industries? How might that look different?
Yeah, it's a great question. At the end of the day, the one thing I will say is people are people. So regardless of the industry or the type of work you're doing, there are always going to be people-focused traits and behaviors and things that will across the board be the same. I think where the major shift comes for me is actually what I was referring to before, which is management really was built in the Industrial Revolution. I'm going to get nerdy on you here for a second. So the product of the Industrial Revolution is, hey, we're making widgets, we're making plates. I need you to make X amount of plates per hour. That is what our output is. And so the person who was the manager was the person who had the most experience and understanding and training around how you run the machine. How do you get the plates out into the world in the most efficient manner? And it was knowledge that not everybody on the line had. And so that was really what management's role was almost to command and control the situation from both a safety perspective and from a knowledge perspective. Fast forward, absolutely manufacturing is still a major thing. And we also have this whole new space of knowledge work and this, like I was saying earlier, ability with AI and just with all the resourcing that now exists on the internet, that information is much more at your fingertips. And things are changing fast. so fast. We're all tired. At least I am. I don't know about everybody else. I'm tired.
Oh yeah, I feel
Everybody's
it.
tired. But what that brings with it is kind of what I was saying. Like, your manager isn't always going to be the most specialist, the smartest in the most specialized area in the room. I don't think I said that well, but I think you get what I'm saying. They're not going to be the one with the most specialized knowledge, which is what the case was when the Industrial Revolution was prioritizing that for management. And so what we focus on, especially in our training, is sort of this shift from command and control, micromanagement, I have all the answers, this is how you do it, to what is a coaching style approach to management. How do you create space for people to get to their own answers? How do you help them become better problem solvers? How do you help them grow in ways that feel beyond their capacity to themselves? And what does that look like? And I think there will always be space for coaching style management in a modern workplace, period. And it's a skill that we all have to learn. And there are always going to be industries in which command and control scenarios are important. And I'll give you two examples. One is, like, you really don't want your brain surgeon like hoping that he has enough information to do your surgery that day. Like, there is a reason that there's like a very specific checklist process when someone is going through brain surgery, and that they practice on non-humans for a very, 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 very long time. Like, there's a lot of control in that scenario and how things are done.
Right.
Very different than, hey, I've got this idea for a marketing campaign. And instead, as a manager, you're not coming in and saying, oh my gosh, this is how I did it last time. It's like you're creating space for them to sort of answer their own questions. And I think, and I will say, this was an interesting thing. The more tech companies we have worked with, the more room I have created in my own understanding and empathy around the need for command and control style management in some circumstances because of how fast things move. So coaching takes time. It just does. It is faster for you to tell someone how to do a thing. And I think that nuanced understanding in today's world, like I said, we're moving so fast, of what is the right moment for a coaching style approach and when is the right moment for, and I hate this term, but command and control is the way that it gets talked about. Style approach, a directive approach. There's nuance there. It's not all one or the other. So that's, I think, another piece of it as well.
Balance.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for validating everybody out there that we're tired and that things are moving too fast.
Just want a nap.
Yeah.
That's the general thought every day.
Well, we're recording this episode on a Friday, so cruising into the weekend here pretty soon. Right? So, yeah, but one thing of where my mind went with like giving people space to have creativity. Obviously, as you said, there are different types of roles and different types of companies and industries, but I've done a lot of engagement surveys, employee engagement surveys, and I've certainly seen micromanagement mentioned as a negative and empowerment mentioned as a positive, where people feel trusted and respected as a person and as an expert in their realm, to be able to bring new ideas. And the person in the room that has the most energy behind an idea is the one that has that idea. So if we can foster ideas, then there's going to be more energy behind those ideas that can then create value for a business. Now, to your point, if we're talking about a meat processing plant, yeah, we have to be people managers. We have to be on the ball with safety protocol and other things where it's like, there's no room for creativity of how you should wear your safety glasses and your equipment, right? It's like you need to do certain things certain ways. And I think that is a good manager to ensure compliance with certain things, but it's about, emotional intelligence, to your point, and caring for the individual. You can say, hey, you put your safety glasses on, right? You can say that in a kind way or an unkind way, so there's delivery of communications and how we make people feel, regardless of if there's a high creativity or a low creativity environment based on the work. But yeah, those are just kind of some thoughts I had, just kind of feeling what you're sharing here.
Autonomy in the workplace is one of my favorite topics. And I think one of the reasons autonomy as a concept is so hard for managers is that managers are held responsible for results. And then when they're not in charge of doing the work anymore, there's this tension between, I know I am responsible for these results that happen. So how much comfort do I have in letting go that these results are going to happen and that I believe in what and it's a hard rub. So it makes sense why we hold on as managers, because we're like, we really want the thing to turn out how it's supposed to turn out. And the growth is that you are putting the right people in place and allowing them space to make mistakes, to stumble, to learn, to grow. And I think that's where that autonomy piece comes in, is how are we learning to give people enough space to run with their ideas when we can at times feel like at the end of the day, it's our name on the line.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. And I think you are hitting it in the right angle, the right perspective here, starting with the leaders directly. And I think you're going to have great impact down that lane. And so I wanted to ask, if kind of in closing here, if you could give some final advice for our listeners, just what are some, especially for managers, so what are some ways that they can improve their leadership skills, and where should they start?
Yeah, there's so many places to start. I'm a big book nerd. If you're watching this, you can see this is my culled down book collection here. The rest are shoved in corners and random places. So I have always been that nerd that's like, give me the book. I want the book. I'm going to read the book on management training or management, whatever, when I was 23 on the weekends, because I was that nerd. Not everybody's that nerd. That said, I think there are a couple key mindset shifts that I think managers can lean into that are really, really helpful. So there is a ton of wonderful, incredible knowledge out there if you're a manager, podcasts, books, everything to lean into from a tactical perspective. I think the biggest thing I would say that could be impactful for managers from a mindset perspective is understanding when you step into a people manager role that you are essentially moving from being a player on the field to a coach on the sidelines. Granted, there's a whole nother podcast episode about how we don't create enough space for managers to manage. They're doing way too much individual contributor work that they shouldn't be responsible for anymore. But let's say in a perfect world where managers have been given space to manage, it's a hard shift for a lot of us, for most of us, because we spent a lot of us who are achievers, who take a lot of pride in our career, who've invested a lot into our career. We've spent everything from grade school through college, through up until that point in our job. It was about what you did, what you contributed, the work that you did. And now you're having to redefine what success is. Success isn't the work that you did yourself. It is the success of the work that people on your team did. And it's a really hard shift for us as humans. Yeah, because we're so used to, I turned the thing in, the thing did well, hooray, I did it.
I got my grade.
Exactly. And honestly, when you are a great manager, you are shining the accolades back on your team. So it's like these people who have gone for the majority of their career as being high achievers and receiving lots of praise and recognition and validation are now stepping into this role where ultimately, if you're doing it really well, you're more focused on getting validation for your team members and for their wins and for their so it's a mindset shift, and I think it's just something to remember. You're ideally not a player on the field anymore, you're a coach on the sidelines. So what can you think about from a coach perspective on how to get people to where they need to be? um, and then I think, just keep investing in self-awareness and growth. There is so much value in that. The more growth you do as a human, the more you're going to be able to excel in a management role, without question. And I think the last thing, and I guess this is more tactical. If you are emotional and you are needing to have a hard conversation, punt it. It is one of the best pieces of advice that I was given by a mentor a long time ago. If you are exhausted, if you are emotional, if you are whatever, and you have to have a hard conversation, whatever that is, move it to Monday. It is, or the next day or the week, and is it great to shift calls and move? No, absolutely not. This is not an all the time thing, but I have learned that the conversation is always going to go better if you are in a regulated space than if you are in a tired or emotional space. And the benefit that is going to come from having that conversation regulated versus the small inconvenience or the frustration of you moving it down the road, it's always going to balance out in the other direction. So
Man, that makes so much sense. It's like, an athlete getting ready to go out on the field to perform. A people leader has that same type of need to kind of warm up and be ready for performance if there's especially something big or impactful. So that, man, I've never heard it so clearly. So I love
you
that.
must be a football fan. You're using lots of sports analogies.
You know what the irony of all of this is I do not do sports. Like I'm that human that owns the shirt that's like go sports, because like I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. But I just know that coaching is impactful, and that, for someone who's not a sports person, I do use a lot of sports.
That is awesome.
That's so funny. But really, you hit it on the head. I love that. Having a mindset shift, focusing on your employees, getting the accolades, and then, having a space to, and advocating for yourself to have a space for management. And, if you don't have that right now, advocate to have that, because that can be huge in your endeavors to be manager. And I love it. Everything you said, so good today. So,
really good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jill. And to our listeners, we'll include a link to her podcast, so check it out, and what she's doing, and check out her management training. It'll surely help you in your management and pass it on to the managers around you. And don't forget to leave us a review and check out our next episode. And anything else you want to say, Matt?
Yeah, is there anything, Jill, that you would say, like, to a company or a people manager that's listening, of how they can get help from you? Like, I think people need, like, if they want to get in touch with you directly, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We can definitely link on, in the episode. It's wanttoworkthere.com/management training is our program. What I'll just say is I built the thing that I wanted in my last head of people role. And it really comes down to accessibility. Management training is, for absolutely valid reasons, expensive field to invest in. And I've lived my life in the startup space, and I just felt like there was this gap of smaller companies who were able to invest in those training tools earlier on, so that it became a foundation instead of something you were trying to fix later on. So if that sounds like you and you've been priced out of the management training market, definitely go give it a look. But yeah, I'll also drop some resources. We have like a bunch of great stuff on like the 4 things you should think about before you invest in management training.
Nice.
So there's a lot you can do that doesn't involve a cost even right now. We'll drop that too. And then I guess the last thing I'll leave, we are gearing up to do this summer a series of around making the case. So one of the hardest things in the people ops world, and there are so many, is being able to make a business case for the thing that you want to do. And so we're going to do a series with people in different areas who are doing really cool things, whether it's around comp or management training or these different things, and then their perspective on how you make the business case for
Okay.
doing that in your organization. So I feel like your listeners would appreciate that, given what
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys care about.
Yeah.
So if that's something they're interested in, I'll get you guys the link for that too. We'll get them signed up.
Fantastic.
Sounds great.
Well,
Thank you
thank you,
so much, Jill. It was
Yeah,
such
thanks
a
for being
great
here.
conversation today. Yeah.
And thanks everyone for listening. We really appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you, Jill.
Thanks so much. It was so fun.
Sounds good. We'll see you.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Culture Profit podcast and for being a part of our journey to prove that putting people first is best for business.
Today's episode was sponsored by Mowbray.
Want to get more employee reviews and streamline your employer reputation? Visit mowbray.com.
Now go find one way to prioritize your people and watch your profits grow.